And we continue at 2:05 in the afternoon on the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wang's in Culver City.
John, if you're an optimist, you would say that, look at this, 19.7% of Californians have turned in their ballots for Prop 50. If you were a pessimist, you would say, look at this, 80.3% of Californians said, screw this.
Voters in California are sophisticated.
At least so far.
I beg to differ. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. It is our pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. He is the host of The Story Is, which airs weeknights from 9 to 11 Pacific on CNN. You can get him on X at Elex_Michaelson. Elex Michaelson, welcome.
Alex, are you on mute?
Oh, there we go. Hi, John. Good to be with you. Hi, Randy. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Started at CNN and forgot how to use a phone.
Well, when I worked at CNN, they forgot how to put my global entry number in my travel document, so I ended up without TSA pre-check every time I had to go to the airport.
What a shame. First-class problems.
Well, congratulations on the launch of the new show. That's great.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Yeah, it's fun to be underway.
All right. Well, you've had a big week so far by interviewing the governor of California and the wannabe president of the United States, Gavin Newsom, who you just had a sit down with.
Yeah, and it's interesting that he is finally now admitting that he's at least thinking about running for president in 2028, something many of us have been thinking about for a long time when it comes to him. Yeah, he seems like he feels pretty confident about Prop 50 passing, which puts him in a really good position for his presidential run. It would be potentially the first real W on the board for Democrats who are desperate for a fighter. I mean, he keeps coming back to this theme, which is something that he's been thinking for years. In fact, I think he was sort of thinking about this when he thought Joe Biden wasn't going to run the last time around and was trying to position himself, I thought, at the time as a presidential candidate, which is this feeling that the Democratic Party is weak. And as he quotes Bill Clinton, it's better to be strong and wrong than weak and right. And so he thinks that Democrats want somebody to push back, that they're desperate for conflict. And he's trying to be that conflict, whether it be Prop 50 as an actual thing that could make a difference, and narrative-wise, when it comes to the memes and all the rest of the messaging that he's doing, trolling Trump.
Okay, let's go back to that. Strong and wrong versus weak and right. Gavin Newsom, according to Politico, when he went to the California Democratic congressional delegation and proposed essentially doing a pump fake, he wanted to bluff Prop 50 and bluff redrawing the lines to try to get Republicans in Texas to back down. And then he went on his tour of all the podcasts and he engaged in the bar talk, and he boxed them into a corner where they essentially had to move forward with Prop 50, whether they wanted to or not. That sparked an arms race that spread to places like Indiana and Ohio and Missouri and Kansas and Florida and other places where the Republicans had more opportunities to gain seats by redrawing lines than the Democrats, because the Democrats already got a lot of the juice out of the squeeze when you look at how they drew the lines in places like Illinois and Connecticut and Massachusetts and other places. And now, because California sparked all of these other states to redraw their lines, the net gain for Republicans will be larger than what it would have been had it just stopped at Texas. What Gavin Newsom is doing, to my eye, benefits Gavin Newsom, but it doesn't benefit the Democratic Party. It certainly doesn't benefit the Democrats in the House.
Well, but it benefits him. And so,
right.
I think, most politicians, certainly Donald Trump is in this group, tend to do what benefits them and their personal future and sort of the immediate future. And it is a short-term benefit for Gavin Newsom's personal brand if on November 4th, Prop 50 passes, and he gets to go on national television and say, we just beat Donald Trump at a time when Democrats are desperate for somebody to do that.
He used his sit down with you as an opportunity to bait Joe Rogan, to try to get Joe Rogan to book him on the podcast, something Joe Rogan has been hesitant to do so far. What do you make of that? Because it just seems like a bad idea to me if you're trying to go on a platform, on a program where the guy is not a fan of yours. I don't think you're going to win them over. Certainly, Joe Rogan is familiar with Gavin Newsom's work as governor. Because of it, he moved out of California to the state of Texas. I don't think Joe Rogan is going to bite on this, but let's just say he does. I don't think it would go well for Gavin Newsom. What did you make of him trying to bait Rogan?
Well, it's interesting. He used a phrase which I don't think he's used before, which is he called Joe Rogan the Facebook of podcasting, sort of suggesting that Facebook was really cool before, but is no longer cool, and that there's younger, better models than Facebook. And he complimented Andrew Schultz, who was on with Joe Rogan, and you know I don't really get this, but it's kind of been a win. If you think of the attention economy, the way that our economy works now, in terms of can you get attention on you? And Gavin Newsom certainly seems focused on that. This Rogan-Newsom fight seems to be good for Rogan and for Newsom, right? Because people are talking about both of them. But we have seen instances when Gavin Newsom is really confronted, like what we saw Adam Carolla do with him, especially when he's confronted in settings where he's not expecting it, where it doesn't necessarily go great for him. And I don't know. I think it would be interesting to see it. I mean, part of what I did in my follow-up on the Joe Rogan thing was to say to Gavin Newsom, look, what Joe Rogan would say is that he's not a fan of the job you've done as California governor. You know, he would point out the fact that we've got highest gas prices in the country, that we've got some of the most expensive homes in the country, that we've got the most homeless people in the country. And Newsom went on his long list of things, as he does, where he says we're number one in this. But then I said, but most of those things don't help people that don't have a lot of money. I mean, it's great to talk about how good California's economy is for folks that have a lot of money in artificial intelligence. I mean, it's great for them. But what about people that are struggling to make ends meet? What about the fact that we have among some of the worst income inequality in the country? And so some of those issues, the real sort of challenging California issues, are tough for Newsom, which is why it's really good for him to be talking about how much he dislikes Donald Trump. Because the more he can make Prop 50 a referendum on Trump and Trumpism and not a referendum on the state of California and its local government, the more beneficial it is for him. I mean, when you look at his social media, almost none of the posts are about issues in California. They're almost all national debates, which of course hints to the fact that he's certainly thinking about running for president, because if he isn't, he's not really thinking a lot about California in terms of his posts.
To my eye, California Democrats are a different breed of cat. And I say that because when I talk to them about the condition of the state, they're aware of where they live. They know that it used to be safe to live in certain neighborhoods, and it's no longer safe. They know that there didn't used to be this number of people living on the streets, and now we have them everywhere. They know that the bullet train was supposed to be completed a while back. They know that insurance companies are dropping people right and left, and our insurance commissioner has 1,000,001 problems, and Newsom decided to delegate the job of fixing that industry to this very troubled individual. But what they seem to do, at least people in my social network, is they disassociate all of that from hating Donald Trump. And hating Donald Trump is the number one, number two, number three most important thing to them. And while they acknowledge reality with all of the failures of Newsom and the Democratic Party in California, They just don't regard it as relevant. And these are some people who hate the condition of the state so much that they've moved out of state to someplace else because they can't put up with it anymore. Yet they would still vote for Newsom 10 times out of 10 because Orange Man bad. That works in California, and Newsom has benefited from that. He particularly benefited from that during the recall election when he nationalized it and used that to win. But I don't know if it's going to be the same dynamic when he's on the ballot in New Hampshire or he's on the ballot in, I don't know, Iowa, South Carolina, however the Democrats decide to write their calendar this next time around. I don't know if those voters will be as willing to disassociate those two things as Democrats in California because they're just not as partisan in many of those places.
It'll be interesting to see. You know, I talked to reporters who were on the ground following him when he went to South Carolina a couple months ago, which could be the first primary state for the Democrats. And I said to them, you know, did the voters there care about things like California homelessness or some of the, you know, the challenges that we've had in the state? And they said not really. They just liked the fact that Gavin Newsom was sticking it to Donald Trump in an aggressive way, and that they're so frustrated by Donald Trump that they like the fact that somebody's fighting them. So that's going to be a real test. You know, can Newsom, who now believes and told me in our last interview that all politics is national, not all politics is local, can that work on the national stage? And some of that, I think, is going to be dependent on who else is running for president and whether their campaigns are able to effectively make it about that. I mean, I think this really matters, John, in the primary more than the general election, because the general election, people go to their partisan corners, and it is what it is at this point. But in the primary, you know, will other Democrats be concerned about that? And will, you know, somebody like a Josh Shapiro or a Pete Buttigieg or somebody else be able to effectively make that argument about Newsom?
I'll tell you, it's a weird dynamic because we're seeing it play out in so many different ways, certainly with Newsom's popularity nationally. But also, if you look at the governor's race here in California, if you're a Democrat and hating Trump is your top priority and state issues are not relevant, then state politicians are not relevant to you either. And look at how many state politicians have had trouble gaining traction in that race, where Tony Atkins has already dropped out, Eleni Kounalakis has dropped out. It's a matter of time before Betty Yee and Tony Thurmond drop out. There just doesn't seem to be any room for them. Yet these national figures that only talk about national issues, people like Katie Porter, potentially Alex Padilla, potentially, I'm now hearing Adam Schiff is looking at running for governor. It seems like those candidates have Democratic voters respond better to them than the state politicians, who I guess are wasting their time on state issues if the voters don't regard that as important.
Yeah, I mean, you've used the phrase, Katie Porter, in a lot of your articles, you know, D MSNBC instead of D Irvine or Orange County. And, you know, that has been effective for Katie Porter in terms of establishing name ID with a Democratic base, and is one of the main reasons, honestly, that she's the front runner in the polls right now. But you know, and look, for many cycles now, there's been a hope for independents, nonpartisan people, more moderate Democrats, even Republicans, who think the party is going to be sick of a lot of this national issues, and they're going to be frustrated with homelessness and frustrated with crime and frustrated with all these other things, and will want to turn to a different kind of Democrat or independent or Republican. And that just hasn't happened statewide. I mean, there hasn't been a Republican elected statewide since Arnold Schwarzenegger in 2006, and that was a Republican who was the biggest movie star in the world and married to a Democrat from the Kennedy family. I mean, there just is not an example of it. It doesn't mean it can't happen in the future, but people that time and time again, you know, are buy the argument of consultants and spend tens of millions or $100 million on a consultant who tells them that they're going to be able to win, end up losing. Look at somebody like Rick Caruso, lost in that situation. People like Meg Whitman when she ran for governor of California. Other folks, Carly Fiorina. I mean, how many different people have sort of bought into this concept, and it just doesn't work.
Well, even on the Democratic side, Matt Mahan, the mayor of San Jose, has bought into that, and he's doing an excellent job in San Jose. But I don't think Democratic voters would have any interest in him as a statewide candidate at all for that reason.
Yeah, and he's been, said he doesn't want to run for governor, at least not now. But, I think if you actually polled most people on the actual issues, Matt Mahan would be more in line with more Democrats than probably most of the state. But that's not the way it works. And he would be framed in a different way. And who knows? Could he be successful? Could he not? He's also not Trumpy, though. So I think he could be a really interesting case study of, is there a different Democratic Party? And you also don't know, could we actually end up with what they thought of when coming up with this top two primary system of a real Democrat versus Democrat race in the finals? Newsom spent a lot of money so that would not happen. He got John Cox in there. Adam Schiff spent a lot of money so that wouldn't happen in the Senate race and got Steve Garvey in there. But if there really was a Democrat versus Democrat race and the Democrats had to compete for Republican votes, they had to compete for independent votes, you might see a different kind of candidate. And that would be, I think, really interesting to cover because I think you would see things we've never really seen before in terms of voters having to actually talk to people that they don't usually talk to.
It's weird, but I bet you there's a level of resentment that is off the charts between the state politicians and the national ones. Because even though Democratic voters don't regard it as being relevant, you still need a state budget. You still need to make sure the judges get confirmed. You still need to do compacts with the Indian tribes. You still need a water policy. You still need to do all of these things that their voters just don't care about. And the national ones get to spend all of their time talking about Donald Trump, and they're the ones that get rewarded.
Well, and look at how much more work the state politicians are doing, especially in a supermajority Democratic state where there's just so much legislation, so many bills. I know a lot of your listeners think there's too many as a result of that, but they're, able to pass things and do things. You're a Democrat, especially in the House right now, which is literally shut down, not even having meetings. There's so little power. You're doing so little. What you spend most of your day doing is just dialing for dollars and going on planes back and forth. You're not really doing that much versus a lot of the state legislators are passing some really significant pieces of legislation, like them or dislike them. They're really changing the way the state works. And yet most people out there wouldn't be able to tell you who their congressman is, much less their assemblyman or state senator.
Elex Michaelson, host of The Story Is, which airs weeknights from 9 to 11 Pacific on CNN. You can follow him on X at Elex_Michaelson. Elex, congratulations on the new show, and we'll all be watching tonight and each and every weeknight.
Thank you. We've got Kevin Kiley on tonight, who I know a lot of your listeners like, and Harmeet Dillon, the Assistant Attorney General, is joining us Thursday night. So we appreciate the opportunity to bring a lot of voices to the table, which is what we're focused on doing. And Jessica Milan Patterson will be joining us tonight as well.
Elex Michaelson, thanks so much for stopping by.
Thank you.
800-222-5222 is a telephone number. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, now that we're about a half hour away from the end of the show, if you want to continue listening to us after we sign off at 3, that's easy to do.
3 hours of this isn't enough for you? What's wrong with you? Oh, it's fine. Listen to as much of it as you want by searching for The John Phillips Show wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's the Apple Podcast app, iHeart, Spotify. Search for The John Phillips Show. Hit subscribe. You can download all the episodes. If you happen to listen to all 3 hours of this show every day and my 1 hour show on KABC and download all the podcasts, I got one thing to say to you.
Wow, unbelievable.
800-222-5222 is the telephone number. 1-800-222-5222. Well, a lot of people are asking the question, how in the hell did an illegal alien truck driver get a license to operate a vehicle that big on the freeways. We know one of these drivers is allegedly responsible for the death of 3 people in the Inland Empire, and now a lot of people are asking questions. How did this happen?
Let's find out. Here's a report from ABC 7 Eyewitness News in Los Angeles.
Details about the undocumented driver charged in connection to that deadly chain reaction crash in Ontario.
Well, today, the driver made his first appearance before a judge pleading not guilty. And Eyewitness News reporter Leticia Juarez is live with details and how he was able to legally get a commercial driver's license. Leticia.
Well, David, I could tell you this. Singh was able to obtain his commercial driver's license through both state and federal processes that were in place at the time for him to do so. Those processes, though, changed on a federal level back on September 26, just about a month ago. And it was then that he was able to obtain a credible, valid driver's license. But now he stands accused, of course, of manslaughter while driving intoxicated. Shackled and wearing an orange jail jumpsuit, 21-year-old Jashin Preet Singh appeared in a Rancho Cucamonga courtroom to face charges of vehicular manslaughter while intoxicated and driving under the influence causing injury. Dashcam video.
Should we be allowing any 21-year-olds to drive a truck?
Well, this story is so insane on so many different levels. How old do you have to be to rent a car?
25.
How old do you have to be to rent a hotel room?
Think you can do that at 18, but you've got to have a credit card.
Are you sure?
Well,
because I remember when I was in
Google.
college, friends of mine were in graduate school, and we would go on vacation together. And I remember they couldn't put the room in my name because I was too young. And we would have to put the room in the name of one of the graduate students.
You must typically be 18 years old to rent a hotel room. Is this the legal age for entering a contract? Although some hotels have higher age restrictions requiring guests to be 21 or 25, especially in resorts and casinos.
Yes, because typically we'd go to Las Vegas. But I want to say that they would require you to be 25 years of age to rent the room.
To face charges of vehicular manslaughter while intoxicated and driving under the influence causing injury. Dashcam video shows the horrifying moment. Investigators say Singh, behind the wheel of a Freightliner truck, plowed through several stopped cars, killing 3 people. In court, Singh pled not guilty through his public defender with an interpreter by his side. Now federal officials say...
I love the fact that he doesn't understand the English language enough to communicate with a public defender without an interpreter being there. But the state of California thought he was A-OK to read the road signs.
Now federal officials say this tragedy never should have happened. The Department of Transportation released what it is calling a, quote, bombshell report, accusing California of violating federal law by allowing Singh to continue driving when he should have been disqualified. The report says that the state failed to enforce an emergency rule issued in September, one that tightened license requirements for all non-U.S. citizens.
That was after the thing happened in Florida.
And so California just didn't respond to it?
Yep.
In June, California issued Singh, who is an asylum seeker, a restricted non-domicile commercial driver's license with a K restriction limiting driving to in-state. Then in September, the federal government paused all issuances of non-domicile CDLs. In October, Singh turned 21, and his K restriction was removed, which DOT officials say if California had followed the new rule, Singh's license would have been denied because of his status as an asylum seeker. Governor Gavin Newsom's office pushing back on those claims in a statement saying the federal government approved and renewed this individual's federal employment authorization multiple times.
Well, what's up with that?
Well, if you follow what they said closely, it's interesting because he's blaming the federal government, which everyone assumes means Donald Trump, correct?
That's what Gavin would be implying, I'm sure.
Okay, no, it was the Biden administration. But he won't mention Biden by name. He always mentions Trump by name. But when it's a Biden reference, it's the, quote, federal government to purposely mislead you into thinking it was Trump that gave him the license.
Which allowed him to obtain a commercial driver's license in accordance with federal law. According to the California State Department of Transportation, Singh was issued a federal work permit authorized until the year 2030. But a mere
That's one hell of a long permit.
Yeah, no kidding.
But a mere 4 months after receiving his CDL to operate a semi.
And by the way, who did the test here?
None of this makes any sense on any level. And how could you be here illegally and get a commercial license? Because that implies that you're going to work too, which you're not supposed to do.
Well, apparently he got a work permit.
What's the point of having laws at all?
There isn't any.
But a mere 4 months after receiving his CDL to operate a semi, Singh could be facing years behind bars. Now the Department of
Not in this state.
Now the Department of Transportation is threatening to withhold nearly $40 million in.
That'll learn him.
Well, Gavin will say that he's being punished because Trump doesn't like him. And will pretend as if this issue had nothing to do with it. And the fact that the state of California is not complying with federal laws is not a relevant factor.
So there's the latest that we know. He's pled not guilty. He got a federal work permit some time ago, and that allowed him to obtain a commercial driver's license with a restriction that he could only drive in California up until he turned 21, and then he could drive wherever he wanted.
Okay, but here's the thing. Interstates are interstate. You can go from one state to another on the 10 freeway. What's to stop them? You can't look at the truck and know that the driver is only allowed to operate in California. What do you think the odds are he tells people, oh, no, I can't take the load to Kingman, Arizona?
Doubtful.
Let's go to Mason in Valencia. Mason, hello.
I don't have a Mason.
Oh, you don't? I had one here.
When did we get a Mason?
2 minutes ago.
I don't have.
Maybe Mason went bye-bye. Well, we told you that there was an arrest made regarding the arson that allegedly sparked the fire that destroyed the Palisades. Well, now we're starting to hear the defense from the man who says you shouldn't blame him.
That's because the lawyer of the guy who started the fire on January 1st says, shouldn't it be LA County's fault for not putting out that fire?
And you know what? A case could be made.
For more, here's ABC 7 Eyewitness News in Los Angeles.
It is breaking news right now at 5. The man suspected of starting a fire a week before the deadly and destructive Palisades fire, pleading not guilty this afternoon in a downtown L.A. courtroom.
Jonathan Rinder-Kanesh appearing in an L.A. federal court just weeks after being arrested in Florida. Eyewitness News reporter Josh Haskell live in downtown where he spoke to his defense attorney. Josh?
Well, Mark and Michelle, Jonathan Rinder-Kanesh appeared to take issue with being detained while he awaits trial. And that's when his lawyer called for a break. The two left the courtroom and they met privately. Now, the defense says that they plan to call fire experts and address, quote, the failure of the Los Angeles Fire Department.
This guy can't get out on bail, but armed robbers in West Hollywood can.
Well, you know who is not going to like this is LA Mayor Karen Bass, because what this guy is going to do is he's going to put the city of Los Angeles on trial and say that their incompetence caused the Palisades to burn down, not him.
Palisades fire suspect Jonathan Rinder-Kanesh back in Los Angeles after he was taken into custody in Florida earlier this month. In a downtown LA federal courtroom, Rinder-Kanesh pleaded not guilty and was ordered to remain in custody.
They're trying to associate and blame him for a fire that he was possibly associated with in January 1st, the Lockman fire, with a fire that occurred 7 days later, which is the Palisades fire. Their whole theory is that the Palisades fire was a reignition of the Lockman fire. Well, what about what happened between January 1st and January 7th? Jonathan wasn't out there with a fire hose putting that fire out at the Lockman location. The fire department was. So why are they blaming him for whatever the fire department didn't do?
There may be a juror or two who buys into that.
Well, it's not a nutty argument. Because you have firefighters on the record. Jennifer Van Laar was tweeting about it. There are firefighters who are speaking not by name. And I believe one of the local news channels spoke to some of them.
Oh, we played that story with the whistleblower.
Who said that they went to the top brass at the LAFD and said, this fire is not fully out. We should not move on from it. We need to continue to try to make sure it's fully extinguished. And they were told to shut up and move on.
Rinder Kanesh allegedly started the Lockman fire in Pacific Palisades back on New Year's Day. The fire smoldered undetected for a week, but heavy winds on January 7th caused the underground fire to surface, creating the Palisades fire.
If the government is right, if they can establish the the Palisades was a reignition of the Lockman, then why wasn't the Lockman fire extinguished?
Rinder Kanesh.
Good question.
I'm telling you, there is truth to what they're saying. And Karen Bass and company, to the extent that she's even informed or has any say in what goes on, because I just don't think she has any interest in it. But to the extent that she's actually the one calling the shots, the city was the one. The city was the entity that said it's good enough. And it clearly wasn't.
Well, and you got to look at what would the motivations for that be, especially when you look at what the whistleblowers have said, that there is technology that the LAFD has, thermal detection, that can find out if a fire is still smoldering underground. And if you can detect that, then you know exactly where you want to pre-deploy. If they're not doing that, it's got to be that the fire department is stretched thin. And John, what would make the fire department so stretched thin in Los Angeles besides just budget cuts?
Oh, I don't know. Do you have an idea?
Could be the fact that the LAFD has to respond to dozens of fires at homeless encampments every single day.
And how about the fact that the mayor's liaison to public safety was on administrative leave for making fake bomb threats?
There was also that.
Rinder Kanesh, a former resident of Pacific Palisades, is charged with 1 count of destruction of property by means of fire, 1 count of arson affecting property used in interstate commerce, and 1 count of timber set afire. If convicted on all charges, Rinder Kanesh faces up to 45 years in federal prison.
I was rather outraged at what I saw was going on, which I firmly believe is they're scapegoating a 29-year-old kid for a horrible, horrible event. And I want to make it clear that everyone has nothing but prayer and sorrow for those who lost lives and property in the Palisades.
Okay, now wait a minute. What he just said there makes no sense. Because if this guy is being charged by the feds, this isn't the city trying to blame someone else. Because the city and the feds are not on the same page on any number of subjects, including immigration. Why would Donald Trump and the Justice Department do the bidding of Karen Bass? This trial is going to make Karen Bass look awful. It's not because Karen Bass wants this guy prosecuted. I'm sure Karen Bass would prefer if everyone just moved on and we never found out how the fire started.
Well, we never found out how the fire started that melted the 10 freeway.
That's true.
And a trial date is set for December 16th. The prosecution says they expect the trial to last 7 to 10 days in downtown Los Angeles. Josh Haskell.
Wait, that trial's going to be going on during Christmas?
Well, unless they decide that they're going to ask for another delay.
Probably.
In downtown Los Angeles, Josh Haskell, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
So there's the latest on the suspect in the fire that led to the Palisades fire.
And at the top of the show, we told you you have 1 week left to vote on Proposition 50. You need to get your ballots in by Tuesday, or postmarked by Tuesday at 8 p.m. of next week. So 1 week from today at 8 o'clock in the evening. And according to what we've seen so far in terms of who's turned their ballots in, it looks like the yes side is heavily favored to win over the no side. But that doesn't mean at least one boldface name on the no side is going to just go ahead and lay down and let this thing finish without a fight. And that is former Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, who went on CNN this weekend with Jake Tapper.
Democratic Governor Newsom was asked this week about your efforts to lobby against the measure. I want you to take a listen to what he said and then respond on the other side.
He's wrong. What we're doing is temporary, it's completely transparent, and it's democratic. This is a revolution that's going on in real time in our country. We need to wake up. Prop 50 is foundational if we're going to save this republic. So I would say to those that are opposed to it, wake up to these new realities. Spare me the moral high ground.
So I know you know this, sir, but this is a prevalent view among Democratic voters and Democratic officials. They think Republicans are blowing up all norms and standards for behavior, and they feel, therefore, they have to take extraordinary action in response. Are their concerns invalid, do you think?
Well, first of all, let me just say that it's important. This is not Governor Newsom against me or me against Governor Newsom. You know, we are friends. And
how friendly are you?
I would imagine, because both of them are these fake backslapper types. Maybe Arnold buys it. Arnold seems to genuinely enjoy people. Gavin Newsom, not so much. But they have a cordial relationship, I'm sure. But remember when I asked Dan Walters what Jerry Brown thinks about Gavin Newsom privately, and he just gave us a belly laugh. My guess is that feeling isn't unique to Jerry Brown.
And we get along.
So Arnold wasn't texting Gavin Newsom at the beginning of this year, hey, did you see my son on the White Lotus?
Nope.
And we get along, and he came to me and told me about this situation. And we have been working on this without attacking each other and all of that. So that's number one. Number two, I think when they said...
I think he's doing this interview from the gym.
He was. I think it was Muscle Beach in Venice.
I love it. Arnold's got to Arnold.
I think when they say this is temporary, there is no such thing. I mean, the longest programs are government programs that are temporary.
Fact check true.
If you don't believe us, take a look at tolls on a bridge. They're always supposed to be temporary, and then when the bridge is paid off, they find a reason to keep the tolls going.
Okay, just remember that if it is a tax program or if it is the redistricting program, anything that is temporary with government is permanent. So they, in the year 2032, when the independent redistricting commission is supposed to come back, they're going to say, wait a minute, there's still gerrymandering going on in Texas. There's still gerrymandering going on in Ohio. There's still gerrymandering going on in Florida. We have to continue with the gerrymandering. This is what's going to happen. They will find an excuse. So therefore, I don't think it is temporary. So that's total fantasy. So the second thing is that you cannot cheat your way out of it. What they should do is, what the Democrats should do is they should outperform Trump. To me, it's all about competition creates performance. And so what they do is with the redistricting commission is that they're going to go and try to draw the district lines in such a way that they get voted in no matter if they work well or not for the American people.
And it does look like it's going to pass.
Despite Arnold's objections,